Hello, it's Fan here, and in this guide I'll be showing you guys what is the best aircraft and also parts for a multiplayer match in Ace Combat 7 under the 2000 point category. Now let's go to the hangar, and my preferred choice of aircraft, the one I think is the best, is the MiG-21. Now I know it's an old plane, but it actually works. I actually have two sets I'll be showing you guys. I have set number 8, which is for when your special weapons are disabled in the lobby, when you have that type of restriction. And set number 9 is when the special weapons are enabled. I'll be showing both and try to give you guys an idea on the tactics and what is, the thinking process to achieve this. Now, the reason why I picked the MiG-21 is a relatively well-balanced aircraft from, the lower end, but it has a cost of 1,500 points, which means you have 500 points to play with. One recommendation whenever you choose non-special weapon enabled match is that you pick an air-to-ground weapon, because that minimizes the points required, so you have more to play with. But at least in this case it didn't matter too much, because I didn't even get close to the limit of 2000. Now when it comes to parts, here's my setup. I have the light blisk level 2, the cutting edge air brake level 2. The good thing about these is that they both increase your speed and mobility at the same time in the same part. One makes you accelerate faster, the other one makes you decelerate faster. That comes in very handy for a turn fight. After that, we have the variable cycle engine level 2 and the ECU software update level 2. Both these parts are good because they increase the speed and mobility at the same time. And the last body part is the superior maneuverability level 2. Just because your speed is already relatively high, but you can always increase that mobility. With this setup, you're likely to match or even surpass what your enemies bring in. So you'll be very maneuverable, even though it's a MiG-21. Now, for matches when your special weapons are disabled, I recommend putting all your efforts in the arms, the parts that you have available, on your standard missiles. So we have the thrust adjusting steering device level 2, which increases your homing, the directional proximity fuse level 2, which increases the power or the damage, and also the new high energy propellant, which increases the flight speed. My goal here is to be able to shoot a missile very fast so the enemy doesn't have time to evade, and make sure that that missile does a lot of damage. Hopefully with two standard missiles, you already be able to destroy your enemy. Works on most of the cases. And I increase the homing just to make sure that it is gonna indeed hit the target. The tactic that I use for this aircraft, as you can see in the other video that I made, is try to get very close to the enemy and fire 2 missiles simultaneously. Because with these parts, it is very likely that if you have a good position, obviously, you'll be able to shoot down the enemy and he will not have time to evade. So that is a tactic that I use. Get very close, launch your missiles. With the MiG-21, with these parts, you should have that capability. Now when the special weapons are enabled, then we have a slightly different story. So let me show you guys. In terms of choices, we can choose either the external machine gun pods or the semi-active air-to-air missile. This one is more suited for medium to long range. All the machine gun pods are slightly medium but more close range. So which one should you choose? It really is totally up to you. What is your type of gameplay? I personally prefer the external machine gun pods because it is more of a skill-based weapon and your enemy doesn't have that much chance to evade it as long as you have the correct aim, because you can't really dodge bullets unless you're Pixie from Ace Combat 0, but that's a different case. Now let me show you the parts that I have. So I have on the body, I have the exact same parts of my other previous setup, so we can skip that. It's the exact same thing. And I have the three remaining parts I put all on the gun. Now you only need 2 of these. One is optional that you can switch for another part. Let me explain. So you definitely need the long barrel enhanced shells, which increases the concentration of your bullets, which means you are not wasting as many bullets due to the spread, which means in other terms that you are dealing more damage per interval because you're not missing the enemy. The other part that you need is the high power enhanced shells, because that increases the damage that you give to your enemy. Very important. The one that is optional is the long range enhanced shells. That only increases the range that you can fire the external machine gun pods and also the gun. It's important to emphasize these works for both the gun and the external machine gun pods, So you should fire both of them at the same time when you're playing. You have enough ammunition to last the entire match, so don't worry, be trigger happy, pun not intended. But this one is optional because it is only worth potentially if you're doing like a head-on pass. Well, the problem with that is your enemies usually have their special weapons also enabled. They can probably pick you from a longer range. However, I feel comfortable using this part. I feel comfortable aiming for a longer distance. But if you think you're struggling with getting the aim, get another part, increase your maneuverability, maybe your speed, or something else. This one is optional. Now, for some tips, third-person view, maybe you should do it if you feel comfortable with it. You have to estimate where your gun reticle is, especially when, you know, it's a high deflection shot. But I know I said on my other video, the one with the tips, not to play on the cockpit view, but this might be one of the few setups where I could recommend cockpit view. That is because you are using the gun. You want to have it fixed on the middle of the screen. You already know where you're firing. You know, the thing with the third-person view is that the camera is slightly above the aircraft, so you're not direct line up with the gun reticule. But on the cockpit view, this could potentially work. Just don't lock the camera onto the enemy. Instead, use the arrow. You know how much close you're getting to the target, and you should be able to get some hits. It takes some practice, and do whatever you feel comfortable with. The other option would be, of course, you know, to bring the semi-active missile, but that's a different story. Now, if you do want to get your hits a little bit more precise, you can also use a joystick, because sometimes you make some adjustments with your analog stick and it goes too much. And with the joystick, you can do more precise control. Especially, you know, that's really useful when you do with a gun. And also the EML. For example, when you have those enemies at very long distance, when you're trying to use the EML, it's hard to get a snipe because every minor move that you do in the controller also does a relatively major change in your direction, especially, you know, yaw or your roll and also your pitch, a little bit to a lesser extent. So it comes in handy when you have that joystick because you can do the fine adjustments when you are into those long range situations. And I've tried and it worked quite well for me. So if you are interested in a flight stick for these weapons that you need manual aim, like the gun, the EML, and also the pulse lasers, check out my friends at Trustmaster. Links are in the description. Help support the channel and you can get a little bit of more that precision. Comes in very handy for long range shots or minor adjustments in the gun, which is especially useful when you're doing those turn fights. And if you're interested in having the EML as your primary weapon, be sure to check out my other video guide on the setup of the Sukhoi 33, which is currently my favorite setup in Ace Combat 7's multiplayer mode. And I'll finish it up here with my guide of the MiG-21 for matches under the 2000 points restriction. Just be sure not to use those tactics against me, that's unfair. Anyway, hope you guys have enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next time.